Good day, guys. We felt really strong about this third day, rounds 4 through 7. Just the way again the board fell for us. Start off with Lecky Fotu, nose tackle, defensive lineman from Utah. Reminded me a lot of Vita Vea from the University of Washington. Big space eater inside, tremendous quickness and athleticism for a big man. Really think he has tremendous upside and a guy that can do a number of things for us. Rashard Lawrence, alpha male, tough guy, truly a mature leader and a guy that in a national championship program they look to as one of the leaders of that group. Evan Weaver, University of California, our next pick. He's a guy that some have said overachiever, whatever you want to say. Highly instinctive, smart, tough, competitive. The production speaks for itself. Really excited about him. Met him at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he walked into the room and it was 2 seconds until you realize, the saying that, it's better to say whoa than sick 'em. I mean, it took 2 seconds to say whoa. It was like, easy, Francis. Let's chill out a little bit. He's ready to roll and he's a tough guy. Last pick, Benjamin, a guy that, we thought would have gone much higher. So the value in the 7th round and a player that can do a number of things for you. Really excited about him. So really good second day. I'll open it up for questions here in a second. I think the one guy I probably passed over is our 5th round pick. Coach Kingsbury was extremely high on Kenyon Drake, so we went that route. And we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, with that, we'll start with Richard Sines, Scott Bordeaux, David Brandt, please.
Hey, Steve. Congratulations on the draft. A lot of value. A lot of guys that were expected and expecting to be drafted in higher slots fall down to you from, Isaiah, Josh, Evan, Eno. You're going to have quite a few guys coming to camp with some chips on their shoulder, a little fire in their bellies to prove they should have been drafted higher. How valuable can that be when you get guys with that talent and then that drive added?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge, Richard. I mean, I don't think there's any better motivation than feeling like you were underappreciated. So the fact that all those guys probably should have gone higher. But also, for me, it says a lot about our scouts and our coaching staff, the work that those guys put in and making sure that our board was set up the right way. And really can't tell you how proud I am of both of those groups for all the hard work that they put in from their film evaluations and the time that they spent with these prospects on the phone.
Steve, 4 of your 6 picks were defensive front 7 guys. Was your intent coming in to really go hard after the defense, or is that just the way the board fell to you?
Way the board fell, Scott. I mean, it was best player available. In the time that I've been doing this, I really do feel like this board has fell to us this year as good as it's ever fallen. I mean, in terms of guys that we really liked and valued for what we do and for our organizational needs. So I really feel that all of these guys, and I think all of them are captains, bring leadership, they bring toughness, they're productive, and again, they're guys that we really felt fit the Cardinal way.
Hey, Steve, it's David from the AP. Just curious, obviously you remade the defense with these draft picks and some of the free agent signings. What do you really expect to see? What will they be better at next year that you think will close the gap with the other teams in the division?
I mean, that was the big thing for the offseason is when you talk about the offensive line or we want to get Kyler some weapons, I walked away out of that press box every game and I said, you know what? I vowed that we would fix this defense. And that's what I felt like we did this offseason. I felt like, we still have some work to do. We're not there yet, and we haven't even played any football. So I can't tell you that, it's ultimately a success. But, on paper, I feel like we've done some good things. And really, again, the way the board fell, getting those defensive players, I felt really is going to help us and put Vance in a good spot. Last year I felt bad for Coach Joseph because, in some situations we just didn't have the right players, or we endured some injuries that that put him in a tough spot.
Okay, next up we'll have Summers, Odegaard, McManaman, please.
Yeah, Steve, you addressed this a little bit, but by the end of the year, that final game in Los Angeles, I think maybe Corey was the only regular starting on the defensive line healthy. Did you go into this offseason thinking we've at least got to bolster the numbers there? And did that go into your thinking at all with the 2 4th-round guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, the thought process, Kent, was, it's great that we took Fotu. Now all of a sudden, do we redirect our thoughts to another position? The good news is Lawrence was stacked right there. And then secondly, we can't have enough defensive linemen right now because that's one of the positional needs that I felt like this football team had that we needed to get better in it from a depth standpoint.
Steve, it feels like a lot of people are excited about the direction of the Cardinals. When you look at the roster composition, I know you mentioned the defense, but are you as excited as everybody about what you think this team can do next year?
Yeah, I'm excited, but at the same time, I mean, I want to, I don't want to get over my ski tips from the standpoint of we haven't played yet. We still have to play football, and I feel confident that we've done some good things, but I also don't want to, put us in a position where we don't realize that there's a lot of work still to be done.
Steve, Bob McManaman, 2 questions. How good did you feel personally just after your first 2 picks? And then you didn't make a deal at all. I think it's the first year since you've been a GM you haven't made any kind of deal, outside of the Hopkins thing. But during the draft itself, first time you never made a deal. Why is that?
Well, I said last night I felt best about my second pick. I told you that. But no, I felt really good. I felt great. Again, we talk about the value. Again, those guys haven't played it down in the NFL yet, but where we had those players stacked to get Isaiah at 8, to get Josh at 72, those are both players that I quite frankly didn't anticipate us getting in those positions. So feel really, really good about those players and about where we got them. Think the future is bright, but again, I have to say this, and maybe it's for myself. I just want to make sure that we're not getting ahead of ourselves and not worrying about the work that needs to be done.
We'll go next, please, to Urban, Harmon, and Tudrick.
Hey, Kliff. Couple questions. One, how do you kind of see Eno fitting in that running back room with Drake and Chase? And also, I know Monday you guys are allowed to start your off-season stuff. Is it just going to be meetings? Do you plan on doing virtual workouts too?
As far as Eno goes, very familiar with him as a player. I remember recruiting him in high school, and obviously followed him, the success he's had out here. He's very durable. I mean, very productive, tough runner. Last year we get to about week 6 and we're down to our 3rd back. That's when we made the trade for Kenyon. So we wanted to bring in a young guy that could learn from 2 backs that we're very high on and be a productive part of the team. And we think Eno fills that need. And then, yeah, we'll start our virtual meetings on Monday. We won't have the virtual workout component. Our guys are pros and we'll have a plan and we'll have a program in place that they can follow. But we will have the Zoom meetings and start installing some football.
Knocking the soul out of people, does that sound like something he would say and kind of fit his demographic of a player, so to speak?
I didn't hear the first part of that. I'm sorry.
Evan Weaver, the linebacker, he went on to say that his favorite part about playing football is knocking the souls out of people. Does that kind of fit the type of player you're looking for on your roster?
Yeah, that's a bit aggressive, but that sounds like him. Like Steve said, when you meet him at the Senior Bowl, he walks in that room and he's on fire. I mean, he's ready to hit people in that room. That's how he wakes up and that's how he goes to sleep. And that's how you want him. So he's definitely going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. That's kind of his edge out there on the football field. The production speaks for itself. I mean, led the entire country in tackles. And you talk to anybody in that program, they love what he's about. And so we felt like where he was at, it's a great fit for us.
Next, please, we'll have Fitzgerald, Fui, and Jarecki.
Kliff, we've talked a lot about your relationship from college with a lot of these guys, having recruited them. How critical as a whole was that for this draft with, less in-person meetings? And were there any times that that's what won out when you guys were deciding on a guy?
Yeah, Catherine, that's a great point. There was definitely some insight with that, having some past history when it comes down to character and not being able to bring them in for visits and maybe spend as much time in person as we'd like to. Just going back on what I knew about them from their high school coaches, from their high school program, it definitely helped on a couple of these guys. And, I'm still in that window next couple of years where I'll have that relationship having recruited them. And I think this year it definitely helped.
Hey, Kliff, Craig Fouye, ABC 15. When you looked at DeAndre Hopkins added to your offense and now, Benjamin in there and the guys you have coming back, do you look at scheming already and think what you might be able to do in 2020 that you weren't able to do last year?
Definitely. I mean, just looking at the self-scout and how we evolved as an offense after that first month, and I've said it a bunch of times, I probably made the mistake of not really repping our offense in game situations in the preseason first year in. But it really came a long way. I think we're still figuring out what we can be as an offense when you plug in these new pieces. You get Drake back, you get D-Hop. Dan Arnold came on at the end of the year last year. So we're going to keep evolving, keep trying to maximize those guys and who they are as players. And Kyler going into year two, I think everybody's excited about seeing what type of progress we can make there with him as well.
Hey, Steve, Mike Jarecki. Roger Goodell mentioned today that they're going to take some elements from this, obviously the virtual and Zooming and meetings. When you look at it, is there anything you could take moving forward for the organization?
Yeah, I think 100%, Mike. I said this many times in the last couple of days is, I really feel like there's a number of things that we've learned from this, as unfortunate as it is, that, we can build upon. And again, a lot of it is the virtual part of it that, I think there are things that we can accomplish on our side that minimizes travel and lets you work a little smarter, so to speak, with, the time management standpoint. When we're talking about X amount of prospects that we're trying to get our coaches in front of, some of the virtual conversations can be done this way versus having to do it in person. Now, again, you can't replicate the workouts, the things that a coach asks a guy to do in a workout, but you can certainly replicate the board stuff and some of the interaction that these guys have one-on-one.
Okay, we'll wrap things up with three more. McClune, King, and Gomez, please.
Hey, Steve. Just curious I think makes the eighth player on the roster with Arizona ties. How much do you value that? And what's it like when you're able to, that falls to you and that you're able to make the Arizona connection?
I love it, man. It's special for me. Arizona is being a kid from a small town in Pennsylvania and then going to college in North Carolina and then being out here for, 9-10 years. This is my home. This Arizona is my home. And I can't tell you how proud it makes me to take Arizona State players, Arizona local kids, Byron Murphy. It just feels special to me. And the one cool thing about it is watching Arizona as a high school football, and as a whole, they have really grown over the years. I mean, there used to be a time, and we always open up our practices in the springtime to the college coaches. And there was a time when we'd get Arizona State coaches or University of Arizona coaches to come to our spring workouts. I'm telling you right now, it's like every week I look up and I got coaches from Penn State, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, you name it, are coming out here because they're coming in this state to recruit our finest products. And it just goes to show, the leadership and the high school coaches in the state of Arizona have done a tremendous job, developing their programs, their players, and it makes me really proud.
Steve, Nick King here. I know you talked about that maybe the board has never fallen as well as it did here this draft. I'm sure there have been years where it's the end of the draft and you aren't as excited. Can you compare your emotions right now to just in general in years past?
Every year I feel pretty good about it, but it's one of those things that you draft players sometimes that, you talk yourself into, or you don't trust your instincts, but it's a positional need. There's always that gravitational pull. This year, I just feel like, I don't know, maybe it's because it's a different setup. I'm out of my element. I've had a lot of time to watch players and watch even more and more tape than ever. But for whatever reason, I just feel really, really at peace with what we did in this draft, and really excited about the players that we selected. Feel very confident that, with all the names that I look at of the group of players that we drafted, that we just got really good football players. And, whether it's Evan Weaver, who had 180 some tackles, the proof is in the pudding right there. The guy is productive. No different from, as I said yesterday, with our first pick and Isaiah Simmons, who, has rare and unusual measurables, but at the same time backs it up with his production. So I feel like we got really good football players who are productive, and most importantly to us, have the football IQ and character that we want inside our building.
Steve, it's Pedro. There's no more board left in terms of drafting. What is still needed?
Oh man, we have a number of things that we have to address, Pedro. There's, again, no position is deep enough, so we have to get deeper at all of our spots. As soon as I get off this call, I'll get back with our scouts and our coaches, and we'll continue to work the calls in free agency and see if we can recruit these guys here. Coach has been using FaceTime and showing them his palatial estate and trying to recruit them that way, so that should help.